Welcome to the Amateur Football YouTube channel, the Starting 11 show. Tabriz here, your host, a special guest, Damian Scannell. But before Damian comes on, just want to talk about and go through the results from Division 1 and Division 2 of the Southern Vets Football League. So let's start with Leone Stars 0, Johnson and Phillips 3, Metro Gas 1, Sporting Santos 4. And this is what the table looks like right now. Independent first, LSU Masters second, Sporting Santos third, Charcoal fourth, Leone Stars fifth, UPAC sixth, Glebe seventh, Metro Gas eighth, and Johnston and Phillips ninth. And these are the fixtures for next week. Elsford Men versus Glebe, Johnson and Phillips versus Sporting Santos, Leone Stars versus. Okay, so I'm not too sure if Glebe are playing the cup or the league. It's probably going to be the club cup because that's the biggest priority. So I'm guessing Glebe will actually play in the cup. New Park versus Sporting Club Thames Mead, Charcoal versus Metro Gas. And this is Division 2. Not too sure why that cup game is because none of those teams are in our division. The Legends beat Parkwood Rangers 6-4. Seagas lost to Hollington 3-4. Wallenham 3. Bow Street Runners 0. And these are the fixtures for the following week. London South versus Albanian Vets, Catford versus Wallenham, Norwood Lakers versus Hollington, and Seagas versus Herne Bay. And let me see if I can get the table up. Hollington first, Catford second, Wallenham third, Seagas fourth, Cooley fifth, Bow Street Runners sixth, London South seventh, Parkwood Rangers eighth, and Cray ninth. So let's go straight into a very, very special guest. I don't want to talk too much. Again, has an amazing story. And if you've been living under a rock for the past couple of years, and if you're not on Instagram or literally any of the major social media channels, he has an amazing brand called Super Dad. Enough about me. Let me get Damian Scannell onto the show. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, Tabriz. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Apologies for being in the car, Tabriz. The kids are going to bed, so I had to get out of the way.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. So the first question I would like to ask you is, why should the audience, especially men, tune in right now and listen to your story and like also the message that you have committed your life to?
To be honest, I think I'm like very relatable to a lot of the people that you would be like in contact with, Tabriz. You know, like my footballing background, being a father, you know, like coming from South London. So I think I connect with a lot of people, you know, maybe, yeah, especially the larger audience. I definitely think, Tabriz. So I think when people hear me talk, can you hear me, Tabriz?
Yeah, 100%.
I think when people hear me or hear my story, they'll be able to relate with me at a level, like a understandable level, you know.
Yeah. One of your lowest points was actually seeing your dad going like through the symptoms of a attempted suicide.
Yeah.
could you talk us through like the series of like events that literally led you to actually seeing your father in that state?
So Tabrice, I grew up with my dad, right? When I was young, I was with my mum, and then my dad took me and my two brothers on, right? And my dad was always an alcoholic, but in the early stages of us moving in with him, he he reduced that kind of like alcohol intake, I think, because we was young, and he managed it well. And then as I got older, it came back on, and he started drinking heavily. And at the time, I was actually playing for Southend, to Breeze. I was playing for Southend, and I'll never forget it. We go back and forth a lot, me and my dad, right? Because it was like a clash of personalities. Like I was quite like an angry, like young man, and he was like kind of a stubborn old man, right? And then I felt like somewhat disgruntled that he wasn't really celebrating my success. Like I was like, I'm playing football now, dad, man. You don't have to drink no more. Yeah, not to say I was earning money like that. And then I remember we had like a little argument, like a little episode, and then like about half an hour later, I was like, I heard some noises, some thudding coming from his room. I went into his room, and he was heeled over on hands and knees, and he was like a dark yellow, like jaundicey kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a little note beside him, and he'd attempted to take his life. I think at the time he was on like some heavy kind of like painkillers. I couldn't remember the name. Yeah, well, it struck. Oh man, I was in bits, to Brees. Like obviously contacting the hospital and like reading the note, man, I was in bits. Yeah, so in brief, that's how it was. But it was like a long line of stuff. His alcohol abuse, me and him going back and forth. Loads of stuff.
How like was your childhood growing up with your dad, and you like briefly spoke about your mum and of course with your brothers as well. How like was the dynamic in the house?
To be honest, Fabrice, like I didn't know no better at the time. I definitely knew that my house was a little bit different to my friends. Like my dad was like quite lenient with a lot of things, and it was probably one of the reasons that I managed to like, because I wasn't at an academy, but I could spend a lot of time outside my house. And that I was playing football. That allowed me to play football. Sorry, and it was just me and my two brothers. We had a really strong relationship. Me and my two brothers, Sean and Thomas. And other than that, it was like us against the world. But I won't sit here and say that I thought that I was like underprivileged at the time. I look back and I was like, wow, like we went through it. But at the time, I was just like a little rebel getting out of the house and doing what I could do. Does that make sense, to Priest?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, 100%. And like, who discovered like your like talent for like football? Yeah, I'd actually love to hear that story.
Yeah, this is crazy, to Priest. So we at the time, yeah, you wouldn't believe this. At the time, I was on a court case. So what happened is there was an incident near my house where there was a robbery, and me and my eldest brother, who's probably watching this year, we when the robbery was happening, we came out of a car and we like kind of saw it. Not We didn't oversee it, but we watched it. Like we watched it play out. So anyway, a couple of days later, police came to our house, arrested me and my brother, and they charged us with robbery, right? And at the time, I was playing for a Sunday team called Downham Tavern, right? And it's like a team out in Eltham. We was playing for an Eltham. A guy named Johnny Bryant got us there. So anyway, as this court case is going on, and it looked like we're gonna be in the shit, right? I played a couple games for this Downham Tavern in pre-season. We played against Maidstone, just coincidentally, like Maidstone B at the time or something. And I scored two unbelievable goals. And the next day, my phone rang. Some guy named Sammy phoned me. Yeah, I don't know. Again, a lot of people watching this would know this guy. He was like a Turkish guy who had a lot of money. He was like pumping it around in non-league at the time. And from there, man, he just like took a liking to me, and he looked after me. Took me to Greenwich Borough with him. Started paying me money I never heard of being paid at the time. Then took me to Fisher. But fortunately, he also managed to put some letters together for me during this court case, which really supported my case, right? Then I started working for him. That kind of went crazy. It came out that he was a bit of a gangster. I don't know if you ever heard of that situation. Like it kind of went a bit sour there. I ended up at Eastleigh, and within 6 months of signing for a team called Eastleigh, which was driving a long way from Croydon all the way down to there, which is about 1 hour and 45, I was tearing it apart to Breeze. I was tearing it apart,
Yeah.
and ended up in like 3 or 4 teams wanted me. I ended up at Southend United.
Wow. Wow. And so, I mean, that must have been like a whirlwind for you. And literally how like was it at home and you know, and your brothers and your you know and your peers, like how like was those like years kind of going
Yeah.
from like Sunday league to playing for Southend?
So I don't want to seem ungrateful yet. There was definitely an element of fortune to it, you know. And I wouldn't say I wasn't good enough yet, but I definitely didn't try as hard as certain people that I knew that was really passionate about making it as a pro. Right. I feel as though a lot of things fell into place at the right time, right? And I think I had some assets as a footballer. But yeah, it was like a whirlwind. I didn't plan on like becoming a pro. I went from like playing for Downham Tavern with a court case to like playing for Southend in the space of like four years, you know, with no real direction. And I give a lot of credit to when I went to Fisher. There was a lot of they're probably watching it. The Piper brothers at Fisher, you know, Hamid Barr, Anthony Riviere, Steve Watts. Like these boys were really like high quality non-league players, you know, that could possibly have made a career if they didn't. They were a bit mercenary-ish, you know, they sacrificed, they wanted money. Um, them boys gave me a very strong foundation in terms of like the technical aspect of football.
Mm. And she while you were in the football community, how like was it at school and college? I mean, where like were you regarding like your
Nah,
peers and yeah.
I'm not really like I was struggling in school. Like at that time, man, I was like a is that the question you're asking? How was my
Yes.
academic side? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was that whole period of like school to like college and stuff like that, I was not interested. And to be honest, if I'm being honest, man, like that court case was probably a awakening because I was looking like going that route anyway. You know, that I actually had another court case at the time, again with my brother, if he's watching this, for GBH. We had like a little fight, you know, and yeah, so like as I said, man, academically at the time, I was not interested, man. I was not interested.
Mm. Talking about your footballing career, how would you sum that up in like one word? And
Oh,
uh, and actually, why would you choose the word that you picked?
I would say I'm gonna go three. It's one word. It's like a one. It's 3 words, yeah, but I hope you take it as one. Up and down. And the reason why I would say that is because, yeah, like it was always like an emotional kind of like emotional slash. There was no consistency to it, you know. It wasn't like even when I became a pro, I felt as though like at any moment I could go back into non-league, you know. And then there was a period when there was interest me at South and I could have gone up again, you know. Like there was no real consistency to it, and I feel as though that kind of like fortune of me having these really strong assets wore off. You know, like I didn't really have a plan in place, but I loved it though. I loved it. I'm not saying it, you know, in a negative way. I loved the journey I went on. It's just that I didn't really have a strong plan, you know.
Mm. And what's like been your career highlight as a professional? And also, what's the worst piece of advice a coach, a manager has said to you playing professionally?
Oh, good question. So I would say my career highlight would be I liked playing at Ellen Road. I think playing at Ellen Road or yeah, playing at Ellen Road because I think I would factor in Torre Andre Flo was on the bench that day. Fabian Delph was in the starting lineup for them. There was a guy named Lee Trundle at the time. He was
Mhm.
a fantastic
Yeah.
footballer. They had some real high quality players, you know. If to maybe match that was St Mary's, they had Jose Fonte, Ricky Lambert, Oxley Chamberlain, Adam Lallana. So probably one of the two, you know. Um,
Mhm.
the worst piece of advice I've got. My experience at Dagenham and Redbridge was not the greatest. Once I left Southend, I went to Dagenham and Redbridge, and I would say a large part of that was not bad advice, just not advice for me. You know, it was like very like robotic style football, and there was a manager named John Still there. He was like and he was very, very like ancient, you know. And I was an expressive person. Like like I like to play like spontaneously off the cuff, you know, when I get the ball, and I like to like not freestyle, but you know what I'm saying, like to express myself. And no, he would like get the ball, cross it, you know, entries into the box. Do not throw the ball inside. Throw the ball down the line. So that whole episode at Dagenham was a bit of a I would put under that category of worse advice, you know.
Okay. What's the one piece of advice you could give anyone that's looking to get into the professional game as a player?
Be different. I feel as though a lot of players now are kind of like falling into, not just now in general, fall into this like stereotypical mold as a footballer. Like, you know, like tick all the basic boxes, you know. I feel as though if you're gonna have some tools, make them shine out. I don't know whether it's ball carrying, passing, whatever it is. Just make sure that you are like exceptional. Yeah, rather than just ticking a lot of like grey boxes. I think that's why the difference between non-league and the league. I think in non-league, a lot of boys who think they're good, right, just tick a lot of boxes at an average level. And in the pro game, they may do that, but they'll also have one or two boxes that are exceptional, you know. And then obviously you go up further, and then Premier League and Champ, you've got a lot of boys ticking exceptional, you know. So I think if you really want to make yourself stand out, like make sure you have an exceptional like part of your game, whether it be crossing, shooting, passing, whatever it may be, fitness.
Yeah. On your social media, Instagram, you are very open and honest with your life. And one thing that kind of struck a chord with me is that you kind of called yourself a coward in like one of your posts. Could you elaborate to the audience what you meant by that?
Uh, so you know, it's like I get coached myself. You know, I have a coach. His name's Dominic, Dominic London, right? He's a he's a fantastic guy. Yeah. So when during this period of being coached, man, like we spoke about my goals. We spoke about a lot of things I want to achieve, why I'm not achieving them. And then when we kind of got down to the nitty gritty of it, yeah. And listen, this doesn't just stand for me. This stands for a lot of us, right? A lot of the times why we're not achieving things or we're not doing things that we want to do, right, is because we don't have the courage to act, or we don't have the courage to change. We don't have the courage to say no, and we dress it up. Like, I'll give you some examples, right? So even let's reference the football career, right? There was times when I should have really knuckled down and got my head down, right? And I knew that, but I wouldn't have the courage to say no to my friends who I grew up with, who wanted me to also be the person who would want it to go and drink and stuff like that. And look, that's fun. That was fun, right? But I just didn't have the courage to say, listen, boys, not right now. 6 months. If I really go hard for 6 months, I could change my family's life for the rest of my life, you know? And and the reason why I use the word coward, yeah, is because I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't want to act on it. All right. And yeah, so yeah, and I don't mean that lightly. Yeah, and even to this day, man, a lot of the things that I want to achieve, I know it requires more than anything me being a braver version of myself. Does that make sense to Bruce?
100%. 100%. What's the biggest character flaw that you see in men, I say over 30, over 35 that you come across?
The inability to change and to ask for help, right? So I think it's one of the reasons why like I kind of like took a step back from vets football as well, you know, and I took a step back from a lot of things, even why decided to build my own business and not like go into like the corporate world and do things the other ways, because I wanted to change, you know, to Bruce. And a lot of people, they hit a certain age and they think, I know what the world's like. I'm just going to be this person. Yeah, and I think I think we're particularly ignorant and stubborn, and we double down on that. I'm like, listen, I know what the world's like. I'm just going to be this version of Tabriz for the rest of my life, right? And the person who we was in our 20s and our teens and our early 30s, we can't continue to be that person. Like, you can't continue. Well, I'll reference just the alcohol and stuff. You can't continue to live the Peter Pan lifestyle into your 40s. You know, you can't continue to spend money frivolously if you've got kids. You know, that you're gonna need savings. You're gonna need things. You're gonna have to buy things for your kids. You know, and that's what I think. I think men hit a point and they're like, listen, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna have this job for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna do this. And I think also that couples with the mental health side to it. I think we lose purpose and we start to like we like, oh my God, man, all I'm doing is working, you know, that kind of stuff. So I think that the inability to change is probably one of the main character flaws I see in this generation of men.
And what's your kind of character flaw, and literally how have you turned that into a positive in your life?
Yeah, so I advise, all men, all men, everybody, but I would really drive like men. Obviously, I work a lot with men. I think all men should have somebody as a form of accountability and someone to help pick their brain. So I have a coach, right? So I think my main character flaw could be possibly that I've struggled to ask for help a lot. You know, I struggle for ask for help, and I kind of dressed that up with like by pretending that things are okay. You know, and learning to ask for help, and not just like wait until everything goes wrong to ask for help, but just to like reach out to somebody and say, Tabrice, you know, I'm having a bit of problems with my partner at the moment. You know, and we're struggling to communicate. How about yourself? And you might say, listen, I'm not really struggling right now, but guess what we went through? You know, like that. And I feel as though the only times I ever really asked for help was when I hit rock bottom before. And I think sometimes that can be a little bit too late, and then you have to make drastic steps rather than just being like nice and vulnerable and open in everyday conversation. And that takes bravery.
It does. Big shout out to like Ben. Damo is undoubtedly a top player. After he joined my club LSU, I realized what a great person he is for all the hard work that he does behind the scenes for people, and has supported a lot of our lads.
Thank you.
And John Jones comes in and says, great guy.
Thank you.
I'm going to be a little bit selfish now. So without going into crazy amounts of detail, I was actually one of your clients. What would you say my weakness was, and what was my strength? And be open and honest.
Oh, what that? First and foremost, I respect you for asking this question, and thank you, Mr. Jones and Cass. Thank you very much for the messages. Yeah, I respect you for answering this question. This is something that another character flaw that I see in myself and loads of people: the inability to ask for feedback. Right? I would say to Brees that your inability to manage your time, your inability to manage your time was a big flaw. So, like, a common theme that I see in a lot of us men's lives is we confuse being busy and being productive, and we forget that the latter is the only important one. Being busy is something that's sold to us and eats up time with our family, our health, our loved ones, and results, right? And we don't look at what we don't become productive. So and I found that with you, I know you've got a lot going on, to Breeze, right? But having a deep breath sometimes and saying, hold on, I'm doing a fucking lot. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm doing a fucking lot of my life, man. A lot's going on. Why am I so busy? Yeah, but the results, don't really reflect that. And I don't want to ever like dig too deep into people's results, because I don't want people to say, but look, man, I own my house and I got a nice car. Yeah, I just mean if you're not becoming the person who you want to be, then the results aren't working, right? That's what I mean, right? So I'm saying that sometimes you've got to take a deep breath and you've got to say, okay, I want to be healthy. I'm going on a journey with Damian. How many hours per day can I give up? Or how many minutes per day can I give up? And they are non-negotiable, because my health is what's going to make me become a better father, a better partner, better at work, and just taking control of your life. And that is ultimately how we achieve them kind of health results, by taking control of our life. Does that make sense, Tabriz?
100%. Yeah. And what was my kind of positive? Like what was something that you saw in me? We were like, you know what, he's a decent guy.
He's your resolve. So I like your transparency. So everybody, Tabriz is extremely like transparent. Like when he couldn't do something, there wouldn't be a lie. He'd just say he couldn't do it. But also his resolve. So like it's a little bit of a contradiction of the first one. Although he didn't find time, he would then condense everything into like a short period and try and get it done and squeeze it in. But ultimately, for long-term sustainable results, you don't want to do that. When it comes to getting long-term sustainable results in regards to your health, you just have to chunk out parts of your day. You don't want to be squeezing things in. You just want to be saying, 45 minutes of my day for the rest of my life, I'm going to commit to my health because my health improves so many factors in my life.
Apart from the birth of your kids, what has been one of like the best standout emotions in your entire life? And literally putting football aside as well.
All right. So I'm going to keep family out of it. I'll make it like about like an achievement. Yeah. So in the summer, man, this brought tears to my eyes, everybody. Yeah. In the summer, right, we done a 50-kilometer walk. And with that, I think we hit about 10K, right? And my whole life, I've always, and I still aspire to do this. I've always wanted to like provide education to underprivileged children, because I don't subscribe to the idea that people are dumb and people are bad. Yeah, I believe with the right environment, anybody can be anything, right? So so I've always had this idea that I want to put on educational sessions for underprivileged children, and we managed to do that. We put on a 4-week, like, I think it's not a full day at school. It was like 5 hours. We provided maths, science, and English for children free from that 50K walk. And bro, I actually shed a tear. You know, it was like something like I always wanted to achieve, and I ticked it off my bucket list. But I'm not going to stop there. To be honest, I'm not going to stop there.
And talking about emotions, and shedding a tear. When was the last time that you kind of shed a tear of, regarding despair, anger, frustration?
I can tell you last time I'm quite an emotional person, but last time I proper had was at my brother's wedding, but it was not over despair. My brother's wedding was I'd done a speech and I was just overwhelmed because of how far I'd come. But I think when I retired from football, I bowed like a baby to Breeze. Yeah, I remember. You know what it was? Yeah, I just felt fear, fucking fear to Breeze. Yeah, because at the time, Tunbridge Angels gave me £1,700 to retire. £1,700. I had a couple grand in the account. I just finished building my studio in Addiscombe, right? I don't know, just say a couple grand. You know, I just had my first child, yeah. And I remember just standing there, yeah, and I'm like going to these guys. I'm like, look, boys, I'm having to retire, yeah. And I just remember thinking, fuck, all these years I've had this money and I'm just here and I'm just fucking standing in front of these people. I don't even know if this is all gonna work out, you know. And my missus, I've been lying to her. She probably thinks I got fucking all these plans, and like it was just everything going on to Reese, you know. I can feel, even talking about it, I can feel the emotion I had there, you know.
And then is it like still a raw emotion now? Just like thinking about it? Is it kind of something that you like still think about?
Not really. To Reese, man, I'm excited now. You know, that shift, man. So the inability to change. So I reference back to that character flaw, right? I was very much that guy, the inability to change. So I thought football was going to be this, like, I didn't even, obviously it comes to an end, but at 30, I thought I at least got 3 or 4 years of earning 400 quid a week and supplementing that with work. I could make some good money still, right? Yeah, and then the inability to change was the fear, yeah. But now, man, I'm excited to reach, because I see myself as limitless now, right? I'm 38 in April, yeah, but I generally see myself as like a 20-year-old because I'm prepared to change now. You know, I have a coach. I have more than one coach. I have a fitness coach. I have my partner, and I just fucking know I can grow. The worst case, the worst scenarios, I know that they're the best opportunities to learn.
You've like referenced your partner and your coach a few times. How important is it to have a strong network with you?
Sorry to breathe. My bad. To breathe?
Yeah,
Can you see me
yeah,
now?
I can see you. Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, as I said, I was sitting in the car. So how important is it to have a strong network?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's everything. So, when in that transitioning period, I think
Welcome to Mercedes-Benz.
Oh my God.
We would like to inform you that Mercedes-Benz collects and
Sorry,
processes your personal
It's
data.
not wrong.
Sorry, everybody. As I said, the light cut out and I pressed the SOS button. So the importance to having the right people around you. So, to Bruce, man, at the time that things were going wrong and I was in this transitional phase, I was hanging around people that like thought that problem solving was going out for drinks. You know, problem solving was sitting around gossiping about people that are in worse off positions, right? And to be honest, even though those are like can somewhat be like instant stimulants, like, oh, I had a drink, man, I feel all right now, yeah, they always led to me feeling worse, right? So now, fast forward 6, 7 years, yeah, I have people that when there's a problem, if I phone them, they're like, Damian, look, man, let's change the perspective. How do we do this? What do you want to do this? Let's get a piece of paper out. Let's plan, yeah. When I talk about feeling like limitless here, that's because of that. I know, listen, man, if I can't solve cancer and these kind of like terminal illnesses, but I know the majority of problems I can just look at and say, all right, let's chunk them down, and with the right people around, it's a lot easier.
Cool. Actually, Damo, could you just move your camera a little bit center? That's
There
it.
we go.
Yeah, perfect. So, could you like tell me and literally tell like the audience how Super Dad was conceived?
So yeah, at the time when I finished my when the pandemic hit, I had a studio in Croydon. When the pandemic hit, what actually happened was I was currently transitioning to going online anyway, and I started doing these lives, right? And these lives were like high intensity, 30 minutes. I don't think you've ever done one to Brees, he was probably busy. Yeah.
No, you know what? Listen, I know like they kind of hit sessions like 10, 15, 20 minutes. Like you go all out.
Yeah. So it was like that, right? And then I have a business mentor, Wayne Dana. Again, he might be watching. Fantastic guy. He suggested it. Look, man, I think you could help the people that you look like. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He said, dads. Dads. And at the time, I was helping a lot of dads, but I just never put a name to it. And he said, go and help them, man. Go and serve, man. You're a leader. Go and be that go and be that leader for them, man. Like and do it with your chest out. So I started collecting momentum. I started helping dads, and then it's developed beyond fitness. It developed beyond nutrition, and that's how it was kind of conceived, to Bruce.
And again, I don't want to stereotype or kind of put men of a certain age in a box, but why do you think men over 30 or over 35 stop taking care of themselves? I mean, is it is it really a thing? I don't know.
Yeah, so if you're talking from a physical aspect, yeah, like it can somewhat be deceiving, right? So what I'm talking about, we've got this like dad bod terminology that I use, yeah, which is like protruding stomach, skinny arms, like that kind of look, yeah, that physique, right? But I think what happens is we become so career orientated, so money based, yeah, which is not a problem, right? That kind of and where society is so like rewarding, like, oh, if you have a nice car, you can kind of drop your standards in other areas, right? You can kind of drop your standards in other areas. Oh, you've got a nice house, it's okay, man. Like it doesn't matter what you look like, And I think that's what I'm kind of more aimed at, like keeping personal standards high as opposed to just fighting dad bod. All right, does that make sense? What I'm saying to Breeze? Yeah. So because when I reference personal standards, I'm talking about it beyond like actual personal gains. I'm talking about the benefit of your loved ones, right? So personal standards, although you reap the benefits of it, so do your kids, so does your wife, so does your brothers, so does your sisters. And that's my worry. That's my worry. My worry is the fact that we become so hyper focused on having nice things, we forget to create these kind of like really strong relationships, and we lead through them.
What's your biggest advice to anyone over 30 regarding losing weight, and also eating well?
Oh, great question. Take a step back, right, and look at the data, right? So I speak to so many men who don't actually know what they're consuming in terms. So if we're talking about food, here's a lot of men, but I don't eat a lot. I don't drink a lot. Yeah. If you took your week, right, and you broke it down, right, especially like if you're in an unhealthy place here, you would actually probably be surprised at the things that you consume and also the amount of money you're spending. So again, I'll talk about alcohol, right? For example, a lot of people say I don't drink much, right? And then when we say, all right, cool, let me have a look at how much you're drinking. I only drink a couple here, a couple there, a couple there. I'm like, see, that's the problem. You know, you don't know how much you're consuming. So I think taking a step back and looking at the data, how many shops that you stop in every week, on a weekday, buying shitty snacks? What about your liquid intake? Not just alcohol. What about your liquid intake? Are you drinking fizzy drinks? Are they 0 calorie? Are you drinking smoothies? And just having a look at the hard data and then saying, oh fuck, it's not what I think it is.
Yeah. Another thing that I kind of feel very connected to you is how open and honest you are with your family dynamic, with your wife and with your 3 kids. And there was a post where you kind of referred to how your relationship with your dad, how it was, and literally you would never ever put your kids through like what your dad put you into. How important is it for you to kind of just kind of be there as a father, as a husband, as a kind of confidant to your wife and kids?
I'm just gonna go back to the post, right? So I hope when everybody's like, or not everybody, when people are seeing my post, yeah, them posts are like from a place of servitude, yeah, because I don't think first and foremost that we connect enough at that level, especially through social media. Social media is a very show and tell place, right? So like, look what I'm doing is really not, and I don't have a problem with that, but I just feel as though I feel I want to serve at that level because we don't have enough conversations at that level. So when I'm talking about my dad, yeah, I'm not doing it in a way to say he did everything wrong. I'm just saying that it's my duty to raise the benchmark, right? So that I just want to reference them social media posts. So when I'm being vulnerable, it's from a place where I hope people can connect. You know, it's not wanting sympathy. It's not necessarily like, yeah, it's just not wanting sympathy. But in regards to my dad, I've just had time to reflect and look back and say like, okay, listen, man, there's definitely things that I take from my dad in terms that would benefit me, but there's a lot of fucked up shit there. I would never consume alcohol at that level in front of my kids. I would never. There was times when my dad went away and left us in a house that I would never do that. You know, my brother looking after me and my younger brother, just the kind of people that my dad had around us. You know, I would never do that, and that's okay. You know, and I'm sure my child will say that about me. You know, and I think that's how we constantly raise the benchmark. And even that, I feel as though in society we don't question our parents enough. Like it's okay. It's okay. We create this kind of superhero kind of idolization of our parents, yeah. But the truth is they did fuck up sometimes, you know, and it's our duty to address that so we can move forward.
And why like do you think men, especially black men, find it so difficult to be vulnerable and to ask for help or advice?
Yeah. So I'll just speak. Well, I grew up with a lot of black friends, yeah, like, and just culturally, yeah, like the word strong. So, like, we use a lot of generalization. So, the word strong is deemed as strong, physical, can have a fight, don't really say nothing emotionless, yeah. But, like, that's just one idea of it, you know. And I think if we start using vulnerable and strong in the same sentence, yeah, it will allow people to come into that space. So, like, I think someone who's fucking strong, who is really honest and transparent and can be vulnerable and can say, listen, I've been through shit, you know, but I'm still here, you know, and rather than just saying, like, not saying nothing, you know,
Love that.
and both could be strong. But does that make sense, Tabrice? I think that
100%.
when we use the word vulnerability, it's like, he's weak, you know, and when we use the word quiet and emotionless, he's strong. Like, what? You know, and it's a very played out thing. It's a very played out thing. Why do you think we're suffering so much with mental health as well? You know, I don't know. I'm not saying that's the only reason. I'm just saying, like,
And what is your ultimate goal for Super Dad? I don't know if it's something that you like to say, but what are you aiming for? Like, what's the oh my gosh moment?
oh my gosh. So I'm gonna go big, man. You're not gonna laugh at me. Like, I genuinely want to change the status quo. Like, I genuinely want to kind of like empower men back to the point where like they take leadership with and fatherhood like as the priority in their life. You know, when they're decision making, like, listen, I'm not doing overtime because I haven't spent enough time with my children this week. Listen, I got to go to the gym because I got to stay in shape because I want my child to see me in shape. I want these kind of decisions to be made, and I don't think I don't think nobody does it and in a way that they don't like their children. I just think it's part of society now. It's the norm. It's the norm to spend long hours away from your family. It's the norm to like. I read a statistic the other day. I think by 2032, they said 50% of the population, the 50% of the population will be obese. What normal is now low standards, you know. And as I said, man, I want what the community that I'm creating to raise the bar. I want the status quo to change. I want dads to say, "No, fuck that. I ain't going to work. I got to stay with him. I got to raise." Does that make sense to Bruce?
100%, 100%. What have I missed that's really important to your message that we haven't discussed?
I want to touch on something about vets football. Can I talk about vets football?
Yeah, 100%.
So vets football. So I played for Charcoal and LSU, man, both fantastic clubs. Yeah, and I think from what I think about vets football, right, is I think it's important that vets football we don't miss a trick. I think it's about winning. I think vets football is about winning, right? And I think any sport you play, winning is a big part of it. But I think vets football, I think it's about again leadership. I think it's about setting the tone. I think it's about ensuring that what we're doing as vets or when we're out there is the benchmark for even Premier League players, you know, because young Premier League players are going to be seeing us from the sides. You know, like that somebody's son's going to be eventually become a Premier League player. And what we do on the pitch is going to be a representation of what potentially they could do later on in their life, how we talk to each other. You know, so when I enter that space of vets football, man, I think as much as winning is always, man, I love to compete, yeah. I just want to say, like, vets football, I don't want it to get to this point where it becomes like this social media, gimmicky, kind of like low standards. And I think we should use social media. I just think we need to be the benchmark. You know, the same as what I was talking about before.
Damian Scannell, thank you so much for like coming on and actually talking about your journey. I just wish you the most success. I can kind of openly say there was a moment when you were training me. I sat down and then I was on the phone to you, and then I started crying. And I couldn't stop. And like you was like, you know what? Just let it out. Just like let it out, man. It's cool. And yeah, you know, I still do some of the exercises. I don't do them every day. I will say that 100%. But the kind of support, and it's kind of more so the kind of mental change and the kind of mindset that you instilled in me. Honestly, like I still use it. It's like, okay, well, if I've like, you know, got to go for an hour walk, I'm going to go for an hour walk. If I've like, you know, got to do press-ups and sit-ups because literally I can't get to the gym, I'll do press-ups and sit-ups. So honestly, Damian, thank you so much.
Tabrice, can I just shout you out? I just want to say Tabrice is doing so much, and I want to go back to standards, man. Tabrice is putting in a lot of his own time, man, and he is the benchmark for the vets football and what he's sharing, and man, he's listen. I wouldn't even be able to keep up with shit if it wasn't for Tabrice, you know. So I think everyone's got whoever's watching, man. I want everyone to give Tabrice a little clap and make sure we always share his shit. All right.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Listen to Reese.
So I just want to kind of thank Damian for like coming on, and again, please like and subscribe. We will be back next week, same time, 8 o'clock. Watch out for some new like content as well happening during the week. Just to let you know, I'm in partnership with Welling so you'll be seeing a lot of stuff from the Welling Town players, men and ladies, tickets, discount tickets, etc. As well, just to let you know that I'm like literally also a collaborator with the SFL, the Sunday Football League. That's the new league that that's like happened this season with the SC Dons, with Grand, with Saha, with Pure Performer. So yeah, I'm kind of literally part of that as well. Also, if you kind of want to hear original audio content, I have a podcast on Selk Grassroots for amateur footballer. You can again listen to it on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. These are podcasts these are conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. These are my own thoughts, and I literally talk about everything. I literally talk about racism, vets football, my likes and dislikes. It's it's very rare that you will hear a repeated conversation. So if you kind of like to listen to anything audio based from myself, please go onto the Sulk platform and just type in the amateur footballer. Thank you so much. Again, I will see you guys next week, Sunday. Again, just appreciate everyone that's kind of tuning in and just offering their like support and feedback. I'll see you guys next week.